Good morning and welcome everybody. I'm Russell Gray. Welcome to the Grambank Workshop. I'm delighted that you're all here, delighted to see so many familiar faces. I want to make a special welcome to all the Grambank coders who are here, to all the Grambank patrons, and to everyone who's joining us online as well. By way of an introduction, what I thought I would do is give you a brief account of the history of the Grambank project, and a little indication of some of the prospects for the future. So what is Grambank? Grambank, as probably most of you are aware, is a database of 195 structural features. At the moment, in version 1.0, it contains information on over 2,400 language varieties, and it covers, and I think the coverage is quite impressive really, 215 different language families, 101 isolates, and it has pretty even coverage over all continents and geographic areas apart from Antarctica. What has happened in terms of outputs from the Grambank project so far? Well, there are 5 papers published. As most of you are aware, there was the Grambank kind of launch paper that was published a month or two ago in Science Advances. There's also been a paper by Alina Shcherbakova and colleagues on a quantitative test of the complexity trade-off hypothesis that was published in Linguistics Vanguard. There is a recent paper on kind of grammatical complexity, testing the kind of linguistic niche hypothesis that was in Science Advances. And there are also 2 papers on the implications of Grambank for computational research on diverse languages and on overlooked data in typological databases. So that's what's output so far. And what I'm hoping in this meeting is that we're going to get an indication of all the wonderful ways that people might do interesting and creative things above and beyond this with the Grambank data. I want to emphasize at this point that although I'm really proud of what we've already achieved with the Grambank project, none of it would have been possible without all the previous work that has been done on typological databases. So in the words of Sir Isaac Newton, I think we've been lucky enough to be standing on the shoulders of giants. And so here we are on the shoulders of giants. And I just want to mention some of the projects that I think were important for building the way, in lightening up the path for the Grambank project. And in no particular order, they are, of course, the WALS project that was led here by Martin Hausmath and colleagues in Leipzig, the SAILS project from Nijmegen, the Nijmegen Typological Survey, the Pioneers of Island Melanesia project, I wave to Michael over there, and the Hunter-Gatherer Languages project that Claire Bowen and Paddy Epps and colleagues launched. So all of those, I think, informed a lot of the decisions that were made about the Grambank project. And if I guess I was to trace the origins of the sort of some of the specific thinking about the possibilities for the Grambank project, it might go back as far as 2010 to a grant, a New Zealand Marsden grant that Quentin Atkinson and I got, where we tried to think about what you might need if you were to bring together data, both lexical and grammatical for all the world's languages, and what computational tools you might need. So Quentin can't be here today, so I just want to mention his name because I think he was very important in the development of the whole Glottobank projects. I think responsibly he decided that coming to a 2-day workshop on the far side of the world maybe wasn't quite in the interest of the climate, but a special mention of Quentin. So the Grambank project's been going for about 8 or 9 years. I thought I'd just take you through the history of it and the rationale for why it looks a bit like it does. The first Glottobank meeting was held in Jena way back in 2004. And it was initially a collaborative effort between people in Jena and people in Nijmegen. And you can see some of them there. And of course, Quentin Atkinson from the University of Auckland. And we had a series of meetings over the next few years with lots of debate, lots of argument. And so I think scholarly debate and freedom of expression is something that I would really encourage, and I'd encourage it for this meeting. As long as it's respectful and scholarly, I don't think we want to just pat each other on the back. Vigorous disagreement is good, and certainly there was plenty of vigorous disagreement at the early meetings for the Grambank project, which Grambank is a part. And there was debate about what kind of features could be reliably coded for all the languages of the world. There was debate about what kind of model should we use. Should we, as Wales did, rely on experts to give us their data, or should we use research assistants? And in the end, what we came up with was a kind of hybrid model of both, and I'll talk about that in a bit of a minute. So, first meeting in Yedda in 2004, then on Waiheke Island off the coast of Auckland in New Zealand in 2015, then bonding over drinks and dives into cold lakes in Sealy in 2017, and the kind of final Grambank meeting in 2018 in Sealy, in Kialoa in Australia. And I think that process of discussion, debate, before leaping into lots of data gathering was really important. So what we ended up with in the end was an idea of a series of linked global databases that covered grammar, that covered lexical data, so Grambank, Lexibank, that covered paradigm systems, so pronoun systems and kinship systems, and that also covered numeral data. Notice I didn't quite mention Phonobank because Phonobank isn't quite under development yet, but Grambank is out, Lexibank is out, Numeral Bank is coming, and Nick Evans assures me that Parabank is coming perhaps by the end of this year as well. So that was the kind of vision for this series of linked kind of global databases. And in designing Grambank, I really want to emphasize this. We realized that you can't be all things to all people. Like the more you encompass, the more formless you become. So what we decided to focus on was features that could be reliably coded for most of the languages of the world. So it doesn't contain features that are, say, eerily specific, and it doesn't contain features that turned out to not be covered in most grammars or sketched grammars. So it was designed as far as possible to contain logically independent features, and we didn't quite achieve that. And it was designed to be able to test hypotheses about the global distribution of features, about linguistic universals, and we'll be hearing a talk tomorrow from Anna Marie and Anna Haney about that, to test hypotheses about functional dependencies, about language prehistory, and about the interactions between language, culture, cognition, and the environment. And hopefully we'll be hearing about lots of those things in this workshop. A bit about the Grambank process. As I said, we ended up with a kind of hybrid model between a research assistant model and an expert model. So there are a number of what I think we call nodes for the kind of coding that went on in Grambank. There was initially one in SOAS and ANU, and then in Kiel and Uppsala, and more recently in Lima. And in these nodes, there are lots of wonderful coders, and this is just some of the coders you can see here. I think there's been up to over like 60 coders that have been involved in providing Grambank data. But I think one of the interesting things about the coding process is that it's iterative. So for each feature in Grambank, there's a feature patron, an expert on that feature. And kind of via GitHub, they interact with the coders and help refine the coding judgments. So a big shout out to all the feature patrons that are here, and the expert guidance that also came from Martin Haswala, who is sitting just here. So that's the kind of this iterative process between the coders and the feature patrons and the expert guidance. Was, I think, one of the distinctive things about what gives the kind of reliability to the Grambank data. And part of that development, and I think a lot of praise should go to Hedvig here, was for developing on a Grambank wiki, which I encourage you to look at if you want to know more detail about the history of Grambank and about the sort of coding decisions that's available on GitHub. Okay, that's a bit about the history of Grambank. Where are we going in the future? What might Grambank 2.0 be looking like? Because this is an ongoing project. There is ongoing revisions and corrections, particularly to some of the legacy data that we've found some issues with the coding is. Certainly, we aim to include a lot more varieties. The aim is to basically code every grammar and sketch grammar that is available. And we've had a plea for including more sign languages, so I think we'll be adding that onto the list as well. Part of the expansion of Grambank 2.0 will also be to include not just 195 core Grambank features, if you like, but some more regionally specific or bespoke data sets. I want to finish up by talking briefly about how the prospects for this workshop and the prospects really I see for the field as a whole. I think traditional linguistics is changing. It's transitioning, if you like, from a sort of traditional humanities-based discipline where people, you know, the sort of mean number of people involved in a publication is about 1, to what I would think of as a more evolutionary language science. What I would emphasize is, though, that doesn't mean abandoning traditional scholarship. It just means empowering that scholarship to be able to answer bigger questions by looking at larger scale kind of data sets and analyzing them with computational methods. I think part of this transition is a move away from what is, I think, being far too much a reliance in linguistics on argument from authority to argument on openly available evidence and reproducible analyses. A move that also involves away from just gathering confirmatory evidence for your favorite hypothesis to actually testing hypotheses. And because these data sets are all freely available, I think it helps democratize the field of linguistics. I mean, we're very fortunate here to have a wonderful library, but very few places have actually access to that. So providing the data freely and openly on the web lets anybody who's sort of interested engage with cross-linguistic work. And finally, and this is a wonderful thing, I think what it enables is more teamwork and more collaboration, both kind of locally and globally. And one of the things that I'm really quite tickled about the Grambank paper is that it contained, that has 105 authors, which I think must be some kind of record for a linguistics paper. So on that note, I want to finish by saying I'm really excited about what I see happening in the field of evolutionary language science at the moment, and I'm excited about the prospects for this workshop. Let's get on with it.